Hello everybody, and welcome to another uncanny episode of History of the Marvel Universe. This channel is brought to you in part by Patreon supporters. If you would like to help decide what topics get covered on the channel and get your name in the special thanks at the end of each episode, you can sign up for as little as $1 per month over at patreon.com/MerryMarvelate. The link is in the description below. This week's story begins hundreds of thousands of years ago with an alien race known as the Plodex. After overpopulation caused them to exhaust the natural resources of their home planet and surrounding worlds, the Plodex turned to colonizing others. They would send out unmanned vessels which traveled to other star systems and landed in inhospitable regions of alien planets before drawing in resources and converting themselves into massive underground facilities. A newly constructed colonization complex would then send out a hypnotic signal, drawing towards it representatives of the planet's various species. Out of the animals to survive the journey, the most intelligent would be thoroughly studied and its genetic information imprinted onto the millions of Plodex eggs the ship had brought along for the journey. These eggs would then be spread out across the planet, and while not all would survive, their species would procreate across the galaxy. While the Plodex on any given world were vastly different from those on others, they usually had an evolutionary advantage in their specific environment. Roughly 40 millennia ago, the colonization ship bound for Earth malfunctioned and crashed in northern Asia around the Arctic during the Ice Age. As a result, the eggs were released prematurely and fell into the oceans. When the ship subsequently sent out its hypnotic signal, a hunter from a small nomadic tribe of early humans investigated. This hunter, Eshu, was captured, studied, and dissected until there was nothing left but a human brain integrated into the alien vessel. Although this drove him quite mad, after 30,000 years, his willpower allowed him to seize control of the ship, using it to fashion a new body for himself. While he was unable to leave the complex, he used it to observe the outside world and deemed itself its rightful master. Meanwhile, over the centuries, most of the released Plodex eggs perished, but at least one survived, the genetically malleable fetus inside becoming amphibious and resting in the ocean. The same ocean where, in more recent years, a fishing boat was caught in a bad storm off the coast of Newfoundland. In the gale, the captain, Thomas Smallwood, was blown overboard but saw the dormant Plodex egg glowing in the water. Pulling it free, Tom was dragged along as the buoyant egg floated to the surface, saving his life. Keeping the strange object, the waterlogged skipper brought it back home with him to his wife Gladys and grandson Daniel on Random Island. As Gladys Smallwood examined the egg, the fetus inside absorbed her genetic information and began to hatch. Helping the infant free, the Smallwoods were met with an amphibious female human Plodex hybrid. The old couple looked after the half-alien child, raising her as one of their own and giving her the name Marrina. Despite her unusual appearance, Marrina Smallwood was accepted by her neighbors and displayed above-average intelligence as she grew up in the small community of Lady Cove. And at 16 years old, she found that her ability to swim far surpassed any of her human friends. Able to breathe underwater, she could travel at 900 knots and execute nearly perfect 90-degree turns. About 10 months later, her foster brother Dan contacted the Canadian Ministry of Defence and told them about her. Shortly after that, Marrina Smallwood was recruited into Department H, Canada's Superhuman Research and Development branch. She quickly rose through the ranks, graduating from the entry-level Gamma Flight and the in-training Beta Flight teams. By the time she was 20 years old, she was ready to join Canada's premier superhero team, Alpha Flight, but at the same time, Department H lost its funding and the team was disbanded. But shortly after that, a great beast known as Tundra arose and threatened the country. The great beasts are essentially a group of powerful mystical creatures that normally reside in a pocket dimension. And so when Tundra crossed over into the Earth dimension, Alpha Flight was called to repel it, and Marrina was instrumental in defeating it. After the mission was successfully completed, Marrina Smallwood was officially inducted into the team, although they were now an independent organization without the support of the Canadian government. Furthermore, sometime later during a training session, Marrina was affected by a hypnotic signal originating from the Plodex vessel. Her alien aggression drawn out, she injured her teammate Puck before diving into the water and swimming off. Upon reaching the source of the signal, Marrina found a massive underground complex built by the alien ship, and inside was Eshu, now calling himself the Master of the World, who'd called her there because he wanted to eliminate any surviving Plodex. But first, he revealed Marrina's origins to her and tortured her while he waited for more to arrive. However, the brooch she wore contained an Alpha Flight communicator that allowed the rest of the team to track her. At the same time, Susan Storm of the Fantastic Four and Prince Namor the Sub-Mariner discovered the Master's facility while investigating environmental damage it was causing. Ultimately, Marrina was saved by her teammate Snowbird while the other heroes destroyed the complex. Following this adventure, Namor invited Marrina to join him in his undersea kingdom of Atlantis to investigate how much the Master told her was true. This left Alpha Flight's leader, Guardian, formerly Vindicator, to inform Dan Smallwood, who it seems had grown to think of Marrina as something other than a foster sister. She still aided the team on occasion, like when they investigated trouble with the water in the small town of Beaver Falls, and wound up battling alien dire wraiths alongside the Space Knight Rom. While she spent most of her time undersea, she and Namor grew closer and a romance blossomed between them. But she was forced to confront the truth of her alien heritage when she was abducted by an Elder of the Universe known as the Collector, who'd already captured different forms of Plodex from across the universe. While she escaped with help from Alpha Flight and Spider-Man, she was left wondering if she was truly any different from the savage, animalistic Plodex she'd seen. But that didn't stop Namor from proposing to her mere months later. Marrina was shocked, but before she could answer, she received a call from Alpha Flight and swam off to answer it. It turns out the Master of the World had not only survived the destruction of the alien complex, but was freed by it and able to escape with a backup vessel he'd prepared. He'd located another surviving Plodex, one who was meant to be Marrina's mate, and released it in Lake Ontario, where it was responsible for a series of killings dubbed the Ripper Murders. Marrina was called in to help investigate, but contact with the creature caused her to again transform into a more savage state. She attacked Puck once more, but Namor had followed her from Atlantis and intervened. He initially assumed that Puck was the aggressor, but soon he was forced to use his full strength to hold Marrina back without hurting her. But after weakening each other, all three were taken and held captive by the Master. He placed the two Plodex in the same tank, intending to observe the results. However, Namor and Puck broke free and escaped, destroying the Master's submarine in the process. While the Sub-Mariner saved Puck from drowning, Marrina slipped away, leaving him to wonder if she'd perished in the explosion. Puck knew she'd survived, but she was afraid of her own nature and departed for a solitary life in the sea. During this self-imposed exile, she also helped a family of superpowered children called the Power Pack defeat a giant snake that had been left behind by the Collector after he'd captured her. Alone in the ocean, she subsequently devolved into an animalistic state, but was then captured by an Atlantean warlord named Atuma who'd seized the throne. Using Marrina as bait, Atuma lured Namor back to Atlantis, but the Sub-Mariner escaped after nearly being overwhelmed by Atuma's forces. However, he soon returned with the combined might of Alpha Flight and the Avengers to save his beloved. Unfortunately, she was still ashamed of her alien nature and fled from him again. Shortly after that, her body began to produce lesions resembling Plodex eggs, signaling that she was able to be impregnated by her intended mate. Refusing to give up, Namor and Alpha Flight found Marrina shortly before the male Plodex did. Although drawn to the creature by her alien DNA, her human memories and upbringing allowed her to fight through it. With willpower alone, Marrina rejected her savage bestial side and regained her more human form, the egg-like growths disappearing. The other Plodex then turned violent towards her, but she, Namor, and Alpha Flight successfully destroyed it. After that, Namor and Marrina married and established the undersea colony of Deluvia, populated by Atlanteans still loyal to Namor rather than Atuma. However, this new kingdom was shaken when Neptune, the god of the oceans, arose and captured Namor. He and the other Greek gods blamed the Avengers for Hercules being grievously injured during an attack on Avengers Mansion. While this conflict was eventually resolved, seeing Namor at odds with their god left the citizens of Deluvia disillusioned and they rejected their king. Without a kingdom to return to, Marrina and Namor moved into the Avengers' Hydro base and aided Earth's mightiest heroes in a battle against a group of robotic villains, Heavy Metal. But things turned tragic again while the Avengers attended a party at the Lincoln Center. You see, Marrina had unknowingly become pregnant with Namor's child, causing her Plodex DNA to reassert itself and trigger another transformation. This time she grew until she became a massive serpentine leviathan. She rampaged through the oceans for 2 weeks, and while Namor and the Avengers tried to stop her, attempts to restore her to normal were momentary at best. Ultimately, the Sub-Mariner was forced to strike her down with the Black Knight's cursed ebony blade. While Marrina seemingly died, reverting to humanoid form, the 3 eggs she'd laid cracked open, and the hybrid hatchlings disappeared into the ocean depths. Namor later discovered the fate of these children during an encounter with Hydra, in which he'd found that they'd mutated into a plant-like organism. However, this strange new Leviathan perished when a destroyed Hydra vessel released a deadly toxin into the water. As for Marrina herself, while the spirit of those slain by the Ebony Blade are normally condemned to a hellish dimension, Namor was able to free his wife's soul, allowing her to rest. But this was not the end, and the Master was informed by a sorcerer named Lan that Marrina was still alive, sleeping in a false death. Years later, he successfully obtained her body and used her genetic code to engineer an army of Plodex that he employed in an unsuccessful war against Kang the Conqueror. After the Master's defeat, Marrina's body was lost, but eventually fell into the possession of Norman Osborn, who revived her and modified her genetic structure to include shark DNA, transforming her into a new Leviathan form. He programmed her to feed only on Atlantean blood and released her into the ocean as part of a plot to kill Namor. The Sub-Mariner was unfortunately forced to slay his beloved Marrina for a second time, dragging her down to the Mariana Trench and beheading the massive beast. In the meantime, during another encounter with a Plodex ship, Alpha Flight came upon a humanoid Plodex child named Mar. It's been suggested that Mar is potentially one of Namor and Marrina's children who survived, but this is yet to be confirmed. Marrina herself later returned again, one of several members of Alpha Flight to be revived during the Chaos War, in which the Chaos King, Amatsu Mikaboshi, destroyed the various afterlives and the dead walked the earth. However, her experiences in life and death had left her embittered and quick to anger, and she started to embrace her alien heritage. While she didn't return to Namor, she remained with Alpha Flight, and together they again opposed the Master of the World. And over time, her anger subsided, replaced by wisdom from her many life experiences. And so she remains with her teammates, who have become not only friends but her new family as she continues to defend her country and her world as a member of Alpha Flight. And that's all I've got for you this week. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more Marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you would like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here. So until next time, true believers, Excelsior!